I think it's very difficult to get a dialogue going, particularly when President Trump is so adept at controlling the agenda. So, he's attending Davos for the first time for some time, and he was highly critical, if I remember rightly, of the Davos audience, and now everybody here is hanging on every word he says or doesn't say. So, and he's put the cat amongst the pigeons, the Greenland cat amongst the EU pigeons over Greenland, and they're all scrambling around trying to figure out what to say or do. I don't know whether anything will get resolved here or not. We'll see on Wednesday or Thursday. But it adds to the drama.
It does. It sure does.
Certainly very different to the Davoses under Klaus Schwab.
Yeah. But since you did talk about Greenland and it's sort of keeping the world on its tenterhooks, if I can use that terminology, where do you think this is going to lead us? I
have no idea. I mean, it's so difficult to forecast what's going to happen. So you had Venezuela, and then you've had, obviously, Iran, the tragedy in Iran. Somebody was telling me in London that he estimates that 50,000 people have been killed in Iran by militia from outside the country, from Iraq. So, difficult situation. Obviously, Maduro taken from Venezuela, although it looks like the regime will stay in place under Rodriguez. So we have to see what happens on Greenland. I was with a group yesterday of sort of Asian-orientated people, and the interesting thing about that was it was almost a feeling that the EU has to surrender Greenland to maintain peace with President Trump. So he's in the catbird seat in more than one way. And from an Indian context, I mean, India is doing brilliantly, and the World Bank figures came out this morning. And India is the fastest growing economy last year, this year, and next year, according to the World Bank. The World Bank's run by an Indian, if I remember rightly, so maybe the stats are biased.
No, they're not. It's based on facts and figures.
Underrepresented. So things set fair for India. I think India benefits from some...
Well, we don't have a deal yet with the US.
You'll get a deal. But Modi has done, I think, in my view, a brilliant job. Brand Modi is strong, brand India is strong. Just had a discussion with one of your competitors about the difference between brand Trump and brand Modi, but both in their own ways unique. But I think Modi has done a great job for India, and India is in a great position. From an Asian point of view, it's the economy of choice after China, or maybe adjacent to China. China, I think, will continue to squeeze Taiwan. If you're big in China, if you want to really be bigger, if you're 15-20% of your sales are in China, like Apple or LVMH, you probably want to diversify a bit. And Indian entrepreneurs are now spreading their wings around the world. You see it here at Davos. So they're not only successful in the Indian context, but also in a global context. So this is a new age for India. And I think Modi's positioning between the superpowers is probably the right positioning. There's some criticism of that, I think, but it's probably unfounded. So it's a very difficult thing to deal with. I mean, as the EU leaders are demonstrating, it's very difficult to respond.
But tell me, as we look ahead into the world and how the world is going to take shape, is the mode of survival if you ally with the US? Can you oppose US and still...
Well, China has obviously taken that position. The US-China relations are not great, I think, in the long term. In the short term, there might be some deal. But in the long term, I think it's going to be difficult to get agreement.
But that's China. We're talking about a different size altogether.
Russia-Ukraine is not easy to deal with either, and neither is Iran. So you've got three major problems which I think are intractable, very difficult to deal with. On China-US, China has had to pivot away from the US economy. US is 28 trillion out of 106. China is 18, so that's 46 out of 106. So there's another 60 that China can go after. And China has been absolutely brilliant since Liberation Day. You look at the export stats, they continue to go through the stratosphere, into the stratosphere. America falls to 11% of Chinese exports, but it doesn't stop the Chinese invasion. And whatever Trump is trying to do with the Monroe Doctrine or the revised version of the Monroe Doctrine.
The Monroe Doctrine, yeah.
Still the biggest trading partner in most Latin American countries is China. Africa, the Middle East, Saudi, biggest trading partner of China, biggest defense partner the US, Europe, the Canadian deal, Carney. I mean, if you want an example of maybe the pitfalls of the Trump strategy, it is Carney and China. What was interesting was President Trump's response. I think it was on Friday night. Was getting on board a helicopter to go to wherever from Washington, and he said, he sort of applauded Carney for his deal. He said, if he can make a deal with China, he should do it. So maybe that was an acknowledgement that Carney has done a good job. But taking that position between the two, I mean, the EU, the Chancellor has gone to China, Macron's gone to China, Starmer is due to go to China later this month, I think it is. So everybody is bending the knee to China too. So they're trying to play the same strategy as Modi has played, of playing both ends off against the middle. So we'll have to see what happens.
But can the global south, as they call it, and China and maybe Russia unite, and can it be then the anti-US campaign or versus US campaign?
I think the plates are shifting, the world is turning, or whatever the right way of putting it is. The simple fact is the E7 from a GDP point of view is bigger than the G7. And if you extract China from the E7 at E6 and it's like US from the G7, G6, the E6 is bigger than the G6. So the balance of power is shifting. And the problem, I think, is America is unwilling to accept a G2 world. The rest of the world's willing to accept it, but they aren't. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm not smart enough to figure out. But they're not accepting it.